De-stressing for the NHS with your host, Dr. Phil Parker.
Hi, today's episode is a really short one, but a really important one, because there's a tip I'm going to teach you that will make it much easier to deal with difficult situations. So difficult situations can fall into so many categories. It could be, finding yourself in a situation where you can't do anything about it and it's frustrating. It could be finding yourself dealing with people who are not managing their own emotions very well. It could be observing something traumatic, but it's any situation where being there is not very good for you, but you have to be there. And that's going to happen a fair amount in your job where many people want to run the opposite direction, but you can't. Some of you already know how to do this, but you may not know how you do it. And what people often report is, I was able to somehow distance myself or take a step back or remove myself from it. Well, there's actually a number of things you can do to encourage that sense of separation. The easiest thing is very simply to imagine you're floating backwards away from yourself, probably about 10 foot away from you, 2 or 3 meters. And that you're floating upwards, so you're the floor above. Imagine you could look down through the floor, if you could see through the floor of the roof of the room you're in, and you could observe yourself from a distance. So this is you're floating backwards and upwards, so you're now looking down at yourself from a distance. And by doing this, it tends to reduce the emotional intensity of whatever's going on and gives you a bit more perspective. This is why people say stuff like, when we look back at this, we'll see it in a different light. Or what I need to do is step back in order to get some perspective. These phrases are reporting this ability we have to distance ourselves in our mind. So instead of actually physically running up the stairs and away, we're stepping away in our minds. But again, there's lots of really interesting research about how the brain processes information depending on whether it's here or whether we're reviewing it. And there's also some very interesting research about practicing mental rehearsal rather than physical rehearsal. So there's some research about tennis players that if they pretend that they're throwing a ball up and they pretend they're hitting, they don't actually even move their hands. They're just in their mind pretending to play. It actually improves their performance, and you can see changes in their brain function as a result of rehearsal. So even though this is pretend, so you're here and pretending to be above, you're not really above, your brain has an effect, or there is an effect on your brain as a result of making this shift. You're able to cognitively reappraise it. So check it out. Anytime you find yourself in a difficult situation where you would like to not be there, but you just don't have the chance to exit, mentally exit. Take yourself out, floor above, look down at yourself, describe what you can see. I can see my shoulders, I can see the back of my head. These descriptors will help you gain that distance, and that distance will allow you to see and experience it in a different way. It will make you feel more calm, more detached, more able to examine it rationally. And I'm sure you can think of lots of places where it would be really useful to have that ability to distance yourself. Take a few moments now to take yourself into the future and think about a few situations that are probably going to occur where it would be so valuable to have that distance. And just watch yourself, see yourself being able to mentally just distance yourself. Just notice, how do you look as a result? What's your breathing like? How are you holding your shoulders? How's your head? What does your voice sound like? How do you carry yourself? How do you communicate? If you're just in that slightly detached place temporarily. If that looks good, then just float into that experience in the future. But something's going on it would be good to be distanced from, and experience it from this distance position. So you're not in it, you're distanced from it. Just get a sense of what it feels like to be able to observe. And then when you need to kind of come back to yourself, because obviously it's important to be able to return to yourself when you need to. But there are times in our lives when gaining that distance can be really useful. You'll also notice there are times when you really have that skill well. It's part of working clinically. And there are also times maybe where you need to develop that a bit more further. It's the same for everyone. So take some time as you listen to this to really practice the art of distancing when needed. I hope you found that useful, and I'll see you on the next one.
I do hope you found this episode useful. Please do share it widely with your friends and family, and thank you for everything you do.